Dr. Ron Woznow, Vice President, Environment, with the New Zealand multinational Fletcher Challenge, was also convinced there was nothing amiss.
I guess it'd be safe to say we don't leave good wood behind. What we do is we leave some residuals that the layman sees on the ground and perceives that it is good wood.
Well, why then was Fletcher Challenge fined over $50,000 for wood waste?
Well, there's a criteria on which the government judges whether or not wood can be economically recovered. A certain amount of that is based on interpretation of whether or not it could be recovered. Our foresters and our operators felt that in their assessment that could not have been recovered.
In fact, the loggers themselves say that that's typical of this government in that it doesn't fine companies significant amounts of money, lets them off the hook.
No, I think in this case, if you look at the total fines for industry, we paid a very small fraction, so that in fact there were some fines that were hundreds of thousands of dollars, certainly 10 or 15 times more than what we paid. So I think that would suggest that in cases where there was large amount of materials left, those companies did receive a much more significant fine. Well, clear cutting is one tool in which to harvest a woodland resource. In cases where you have steep slopes, certain hydrology conditions, if you try to selectively log, which means you just take out certain species or certain numbers of a species, the trees that are left are very susceptible to being windblown, and you then have a result where you've lost that supply, and it's that much more difficult to harvest it after it's windblown.
What proportion of Fletcher Challenge's forests are selectively logged?
Well, 15%, mostly in the interior of British Columbia.
So most of it is grapple yarding?
Yeah, that's right. There's also the safety issue, which then, once you get into some steep slope, the incidence of injury to workers goes up significantly if you don't clear cut. It was not in keeping with our corporate philosophy, so we made a tough decision of having to either shut down some of our operations or cut back on the amount of logs that were going into those operations. If you want to produce a pulp that has the characteristics that customers are asking for, then we believe the only technology that's proven is some form of chlorine bleaching. What we are trying to do is to minimize the amount of chlorine bleaching so that we still have the favorable qualities like strength, at the same time minimizing the amount of chlorinated organics that do end up in the effluent.